The Dabo Swinney stuff that's going around, I have made my thoughts known about Dabo and his sort of overall philosophy and thought process towards transfers, the portal, NIL, all that stuff, and it hasn't changed. All the interview, what he says in the interview just reinforces what everybody should have already known about Dabo and Clemson, is that they just don't have any interest in the portal. Now, he can pretend he's interested in a guy or two per year in the portal or whatever, but they're just not really going after these guys. It's just a decision they've made. I don't think it's going to work. It hasn't worked. The portal's been around 4 years. Clemson has, as a team, has gotten worse every single year for 4 straight years. Could it be a weird coincidence? It could be. Is it? No, it's not a coincidence. Other teams are improving every single year through the portal. Even good teams on Clemson's level and better, are improving themselves every single year through the portal, while Clemson is just standing around with their thumb up their butt. And, Dabo kind of has a history of trying to turn things around with some of these statements that he makes. And his, if you didn't see the interview, he was asked about the transfer portal and all that. And he said, well, we signed 22 high school kids, 22 high school kids are transferring to Clemson. I'm just, come on, man. And then some of what he said is getting twisted and blown out of proportion a little bit. He didn't say that not a single player entered the portal that was good enough to play at Clemson. That's not what he said. Clearly, there were players that entered the portal that are good enough to play at Clemson. There are players that entered the portal that are good enough to play anywhere. Caleb Downs comes to mind. What he said is, some of what he said is actually true. The problem is the messenger coming from Dabo sounds like an excuse for somebody who has and is refusing to use the portal. But what he actually said is that most players in the transfer portal aren't good enough to play at Clemson. That is true. I mean, if you just take it at face value, that is true. Most. So over 50% would be considered most. Most players in the portal aren't good enough to play at Clemson. That's a reality. Another thing he said that's true. Most players enter the portal because they're not good enough to play where they're at. That's also true. And let's be real. Whatever you think about Clemson, if you're not good enough to play at Vandy, you're probably not good enough to play at Clemson. So some of what he said is true, but it's the way he said it, and it's, he's not a good messenger for that message because he has stuck his head in the sand in regards to the transfer portal. But kind of the quotes going around saying Dabo said nobody in the portal is good enough for Clemson. That's not actually what he said. He said most players in the portal aren't good enough to play for Clemson, and that's the reality. Most players in the portal aren't good enough to play for Clemson, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, whatever, almost any team in the top 25. Most. Again, you're talking about, 2,000 players in the portal? We're not talking about the players that get all the attention. We're not talking about Cormani McLean and Quinshon Judkins and Caleb Downs. We're talking about 17, 18, 1,900 players that not a soul in here can name. He's right. Most of those players are not good enough to play at Clemson or anywhere else of note for that matter. But could Clemson be helped by the portal? Clearly. Obviously. Is Dabo making a sincere and honest effort to use the portal to improve his team? No. That part is pissing down the leg of the fans there when he says, well, we had interest in one or two guys and they chose to go somewhere else. I mean, come on. When you're high school recruiting, right? And you're going to sign 22 players. Do you only offer 22 players? No. You offer 100. How many players do you think the average team offers in a year? Dozens. They don't sign them all. They can't sign them all. They're not going to sign them all. That's why you offer and you go visit and you sit down with and you show interest in way more players than what you can sign, because you're not going to sign them all. And the transfer deal is the same way. You can't go, well, we need help at left tackle. Let's talk to one left tackle in the portal. You can't do that. You're not honestly trying to use the portal if that's what you. Dabo's got no interest. We all know. Okay. Now, all we can do is sit back and wait and see what Clemson does over the next couple of years. Again, we've seen what they've done during the first 4 years of the portal, and that is get worse every single year. Now, to be fair to the Clemson side of the argument, they were one of the best programs in all of college football 4 years ago. They couldn't have got much better. The only direction really they had to go was down. But if you're studying Clemson's football program and you're trying to figure out how come they went from winning 12, 13, 14, and 15 games a year from 2016 to 2020 to now going 8-4 in the regular season, and that occurring over a 4-year period from 2020 to 2020, trying to figure out why that's happened and pinpoint problems and this and that. Yes, you can point to the quarterback play has not been as good as it was. The line of scrimmage play has not been as good as it was. The wide receivers, they don't have the elite playmaking wide receivers that they had earlier. All of that is true. It's also true that some or all of those concerns could have and should have been addressed through the transfer portal over the last 4 years, and they haven't. I don't think what Dabo's doing is going to work. So far, it hasn't worked. I don't think he's basically the opposite of Deion Sanders is basically what he is. Deion signs no high school players at all and brings in 40 transfers a year. Dabo signs nothing but high school kids and brings in no transfers. I don't think either will work in terms of being an elite championship level team or program. I don't. If I had to pick and lay out right now what I thought the ACC was going to look like at the end of the 2024 season in terms of who finishes where, Clemson seems like a fourth place team to me. And you might think that sounds crazy, but look up where they finished last year. It's not as crazy as you think. I think Florida State is in a better position right now than Clemson. I think Miami is in a better position right now than Clemson. And the ACC almost every single year gives us a surprise team or two that seems to come out of nowhere. And yeah, they're only good for a year or two, and then they're a nothing again. But who's that team? Last year it was Louisville. Might be Louisville again. Maybe it's Virginia Tech. Maybe it's NC State. But the days of Clemson looking in the rearview mirror and seeing Louisville and NC State 100 miles behind them, those days are over right now. Those days don't exist right now. Clemson is a lot closer to NC State and Louisville right now than they are Florida State and Miami, in my opinion. They got a terrible Florida State and Miami both have better quarterbacks than Clemson. It's like I would be, if I was a Clemson fan, I'd be irate. For those of you who had been around this channel for more than 3 or 4 years, if you go back to, the first 2, 3, 4 years I was doing this, Georgia was not anything close to what they are now. And I was not shy at all about yelling and screaming and pointing out what I thought the problems were with the University of Georgia and their football program. Now, was I right about everything I said? Probably not, but it's too many Clemson fans that are just walking around like, well, Dabo won 2 titles. I'm not going to question him. He knows what he's doing. He makes all that money for a reason. He's the coach. He knows blah, 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 blah. Okay. I mean, if that's the approach you want to take, but it doesn't take a genius or a football expert to look at Clemson from 2016 to 2020, and then from 2020 to 24, they don't look like the same program. They don't. And the biggest difference in college football from between 2016 to 2020 and 2020 to 24 is the transfer portal. And Dabo ignores it. So again, to wrap it up, back to the beginning. Is it a coincidence that the transfer portal has been around for 4 years, and every single year for 4 years in a row, Clemson has gotten worse? It's possible. Is it likely that it's a coincidence? No. No, it's not likely. Their recruiting is not falling off. They're still recruiting like they always did. What are they not doing that everyone else is doing? Utilizing the portal. You don't have to like it, but you can't sit by and watch it pass you by. You can't be an innocent bystander. The game will pass you by. Dabo has basically become the old guy at Waffle House yelling at the waitress about how much better black and white TV is than color TV. That's what Dabo has become at this point. You know, the aw shucks Andy Griffith routine. So, you know, he's basically Mac Brown with one more natty. That's what he is at this point. He's Mac Brown with one more natty. So I guess, you know, cuddle up with that at night when you close your eyes if you're a Clemson fan. So
I think anytime somebody says the two words transfer portal, he just lets the stream fall down his leg every time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't look. I'm not a Clemson fan, so I can sit back and enjoy the slow slide into obscurity that Clemson is on. But for the life of me, I cannot understand. I shouldn't be able to log on to the internet without seeing Clemson fans yell and scream about Dabo Swinney right now. It blows my mind. You know, people have accused Clemson and Texas A&M of being cults, and I never really understood that. I'm starting to understand it now with Clemson. It's mind-boggling to me. Clemson fans are more concerned about whether or not they're going to be in the ACC in 2027 or not than they are about the fact that their coach is letting their program slide down the shitter right now. Like it's just strange to me. I don't know. I don't get it. Now, to be fair to Clemson fans, when I was on the rooftop screaming at the top of my lungs that Mark Richt needed to be out of Athens on the first thing smoking, every Georgia fan wasn't doing that either. There was some Georgia fans sitting around with their thumb up their ass too, like the Clemson fans are doing. And I'm not suggesting Dabo should be fired tomorrow like I was. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. There should be more pressure applied to Dabo by the fans than what there is. That one caller from last year or whatever, Dabo shouldn't be able to pick up the phone without being asked about that. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't see it on Twitter. I don't see it here on YouTube. I don't see it in my comment section. I don't understand how these Clemson fans are just sitting around accepting the steaming pile of shit that's being slid in front of them. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Jesus Christ Home Slice, thank you for the super chat. He says, love that quote of Dabo saying high school graduates are transfers. It's the most Dabo thing I've ever heard. Yeah, that's what he said. He said, we got transfers. We just got 22 kids transferred in from high school. Oh, God. Another bad sign. I'm probably going to make a video about this too. I know this is unpopular to say, and some people, maybe not y'all, but some people get irritated. But let me tell you something here. Because in this same interview, Dabo went on this whole deal where he patted himself on the back for 5 minutes about his team's graduation rate. Okay? Let me explain something. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody. There are a few people who pretend to. And who is it normally? Georgia Tech fans, Vandy fans, Stanford fans. Like that's, but let me, I promise you, I swear, Fox and ESPN are not fighting over the TV rights of the academic decathlon. They're not. They're not. There's no call-in show on YouTube going on right now discussing graduation rates. Nobody cares. Nobody. You know who cares? The kid that graduated and maybe his immediate family. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. And people only bring this shit up when everything else is going south. That's the only time you hear about it. If the internet would have existed in 1990, Georgia Tech people would not have been running around talking about how smart their players are. They wouldn't. They would have been running around talking about all the games they won. But they don't win any games now. So all they want to do is talk about how smart their players are, which, first of all of their players are managing in business administration. It's a nothing degree at Georgia Tech. So, but anyway, won't get into that. But the whole thing about Dabo going, yeah, we've gotten worse every year for the last 4 years. We got blown out by Duke last year. We went 8-4 in the regular season and finished like 5th in the ACC. But we had the highest graduation rate we've ever had. Hey, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. You know what Clemson fans want? They want players that are so good they're gone to the NFL in 3 years and don't graduate. That's what they want. Nobody fucking cares. Nobody. Nobody. At the end of Mark Richt's rope, what was everybody talking about? All the big games he won? No. All the SEC titles he had? No. His recruiting class? No. What were people talking about that wanted to keep Mark Richt at the end of Mark Richt's rope? What were they talking about? Well, he's a good guy. He's a nice guy. I'd want my kid to play for him. He's a great guy. That's when you know somebody's on the way out. Nobody gives a fuck about the graduation rate. Nobody. Nobody. No one cares. Nobody. I'll prove it. I'll prove it over the course of the show. Morning, you're on with Uncle Lou.
Good morning, Uncle Lou. How are you, sir?
Doing good. How are you, buddy?
Doing well.
Well, what does Justice Haynes major in?
No idea.
What does Jalen Mildew major in?
No idea.
Okay. What's his
Okay.
GPA?
Don't know.
Is he a senior? Is he about to graduate, or is he a sophomore? What?
He's a senior. I think he's a senior.
You think? You don't keep up with it?
No.
You don't keep up with the academics of your players?
No, because I really don't give a fuck.
Exactly. Thank you. Good morning. You're on with Uncle Lou.
Good morning, Lou.
Yeah, good morning.
The Clemson the whole Dabo thing just make me feel so much better about like my school, how they address like college football issues. Because
And what school is that? What school?
Penn State.
Oh, Penn State. And how many academic All-Americans do y'all have right now?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
Then I don't know much about Missouri and or Washington, what the players are majoring in.
Yeah, that's okay.
So-
Nobody does. That's the point. No one cares. Nobody. Nobody cares. Literally nobody. You know who cares what Missouri's quarterback is majoring in? Him. He cares.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Maybe his
Yep.
immediate family. That's it. His aunts and uncles
Yeah.
don't care. His cousins don't care. Me and you don't care.
Yep.
No one cares.
Yep.
I don't care if he graduates or not. He cares.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't. You don't. No one watching does.
Yep.
Nobody cares. Nobody.
Yep. So yeah.
It's good morning. You're on with Uncle Lou.
Hey, Uncle Lou, how you doing?
Doing good. What's up, buddy?
I was gonna say happy late birthday.
Oh, thank you. You're a Georgia fan?
Yes, I am.
Now, who's your favorite Georgia player of all time?
God, I'd have to say Herschel Walker.
And what he major in?
Don't know. Don't
Okay.
care.
All right. Now go ahead with your call. Good morning. You're on with Uncle Lou. Hello.
What's up,